Yeah, we've all heard it from our parents, our grandparents, or somebody. Oh, back in my day, things were better. Things were great. Well, some things were and some things weren't. This is my top five of things that I think were better back in my day. First thing that comes to my mind, and these are in no particular order, but the first thing that came to my mind when I put together the list was privacy. Our complete lack of it now, and how much more privacy we had back before, back in the day. Back when I was a boy, that kind of thing. It's no secret now with all the surveillance and cameras everywhere and all that, that you don't have a lot of privacy now, especially with the internet and being connected, social media, all of that business. Privacy is kind of a thing of the past. Even if you want privacy, you can't have it very well. Go into Walmart, there's cameras everywhere. Walk down the street, everybody has not everybody, most people, a lot of people, depending on where you are, I suppose, have cameras on their house. Look at when there's a crime committed, how quickly they can put together videos tracking somebody from here to there to there. That's all our privacy down the tubes. You could say that's a good thing, and it certainly has some benefits, particularly crime, to be able to catch the bad guys, but it's also keeping track of the good guys. So you may feel good or bad about that, or indifferent. But at any rate, privacy is kind of a thing of the past. It used to be that if you wanted to, you could go lose yourself in the woods and nobody would be able to find you. Now, that's not possible. With thermal imaging and drones and all of that business, you can't hide in the woods anymore. Now, I don't know how many people really want to hide in the woods, but if you did, it would be much more difficult now. The bad guys can't go hide in the woods because they'll be found. I guess that's a good thing. If they're in the woods, they're not hurting anybody. I don't know. Saw a TV program. Well, it wasn't TV, it was on the internet. I don't know I don't remember what the program was, but it was about over in Great Britain, how the surveillance is so dense over there that they have cameras on, I would say most busy corners, most urban corners, and they have a complete, it's a surveillance center, I guess is what you would say, where all the cameras are being watched by people at desks to see what's going on where. And they watch these cameras and pick out who they think might be a bad guy, and they can follow them down the street, around the corner. It was really kind of creepy. They caught some bad guys that way. They prevented some crimes that way. But they also invaded a lot of privacy. Now, I guess you don't have an expectation of privacy when you're out in public. At least that's what they say. You'd still like to think there isn't somebody watching you all the time. So I think the privacy thing was better back then. Well, they say if you have nothing to hide, what does it matter? I'm not entirely buying that one. I don't like the idea of being watched every minute, whether I'm doing something wrong or not. Second on my list is fitness. I think fitness was better back in the day than it is now. All you have to do is put on the news about the obesity epidemic and how overweight everybody is. And I'm speaking about the United States primarily because that's where I am. But the number of people that are overweight, go to the airport, just sit down and watch people going back and forth. Naturally, they're not all from the United States, but you get my drift. The number of people that are overweight and the number of people that are very overweight. And the fashion people and the media can say whatever they want. Overweight, to me, is not healthy. I try to keep my weight down. I'm carrying a few pounds that I shouldn't have, and it's a struggle. It's a struggle for most people. Not everybody has that great metabolism that everybody would like, but back in the day, and I'll try not to use that term too often. It's a little habitual with me. When I was growing up as a youngster, I was what they used to call chubby. My parents, my mother, had to buy my brother and I what they called husky clothes. I know a little bit about being overweight, and I know a little bit about being underweight. I've been both. So I think at this age, I'm a little over. So it's a struggle, but I work at it. I don't obsess about it, I work at it. But anyway, back then, it didn't seem to be as big an issue. I don't know if people were eating healthier or were just more physically active or what. I don't know the whys and wherefores, but I know that back then, people seemed to be more fit than they are now. And I think that was better back then. I think it's better to be a little more fit. Third on my list of things that I think were better back then is music. I know. Every generation thinks that their music is the best. And I'm no different. I think my generation's music was the best. That's all. Not a big deal. You can think your generation's music is the best too. That's fine. That's as it should be, I suppose. I was born and raised in Detroit, home of Motown. So soul music had a huge influence on me coming up. When I went to high school, I rode the bus to high school, and the bus that I took, the route that I took down to my high school, which was downtown, went right past the Motown studios. That tells you how close I am to the soul music of that era. I loved it. I loved every bit of it. Along that same time was the early rock and roll, which I also loved. And then we went through I guess it was the late 60s, early 70s with the psychedelic music. That was my era. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? And then we got to disco, and I'm one of the few people I know that enjoyed disco music. I still like disco music. Give me some Bee Gees, man. But I enjoyed a lot of different music. I enjoyed the different styles as they came up, right up until hip hop and rap, which I don't care for at all. I'm an old guy, so what can I tell you? A lot of people like it. Good for them. Fourth on my list of things that were better back then, as I said, having grown up in Detroit, is cars. I loved the cars back then, especially the muscle era. I mean, we went through the 57 Chevys and all that business, but when we got to the muscle area, I really liked that. We had music, speaking of music, we had music about the different cars and the different muscle cars, 409, GTO, all of that. Of course, back then it was mostly American cars. The automotive industry was Detroit. I really liked the 396 Chevelles, the 442 Oldsmobiles. Muscle cars, man, that's what it's about. Giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, 409. It wasn't hard back then to tell a Ford from a Chevy, from a Dodge, from a AMC. The cars had style back then. I mean, I know they have style now, but the styles are so similar now that sometimes it's hard to tell one car from another, especially SUVs. To me, the SUVs all look the same. I like being able to tell the different models. Now, with some specific exceptions, it's hard to tell one from the other from me. And I know that that's as much me as the styles of the cars, I suppose, but there you have it. Number 5 on the list of top 5 things I preferred back then was camping. When I was growing up, my family went camping during the summer every year. Michigan, your vacations were primarily in the summer, and my dad was a policeman, so we had, I think, 2 weeks a year to do something, and 9 times out of 10 it involved camping. And I remember camping; those were really great times. I remember going to the state parks, and the state parks were great. Camping was really cheap. I don't like $1 a night or $1.50 a night or something like that. And I know that's inflation and everything involved with that. I get that. but camping was cheap. It was a cheap vacation. Nowadays, camping isn't that much cheaper than getting a motel, at least the kind of motels we frequent. But I remember it was a really happy time camping. Some of the state parks had programs, sitting around campfires singing "Kumbaya." Those were good memories for me. And Kathy and I did a little camping, motorcycle camping, and I've done a little motorcycle camping on my own, and it's different now. It's not quite as rustic as it was in the past, and I'm not talking about pit toilets. I'm talking about space between sites, and a feeling that you're out in the woods. It seems like back then you had more of that backwoods feeling than there is now. Now it's how many can we put into this space that we have, and I think that's unfortunate. And I'm talking, what I'm talking about is primarily tent camping. That's what my family did. Was we had a big old green canvas tent, with poles on the outside and a big center beam and everything. I remember my mom and dad putting it up. And then at one point they got a pop-up camper, if you know what that is. One it's a trailer, and then once you get it leveled out, you pull up the top and it becomes like a tent trailer hybrid. So they would sleep there, and my brother and I would sleep in a tent. So now it's more RVs, or it seems what I'm most familiar with now is the RVs and RV parks, the KOAs and Jellystones and whatnot, which are more family oriented, but they're more around the activities than they are getting out in the woods kind of a feel. And I preferred the other. I know there are a lot of people that prefer the amenities that come with the campsites now, but I'm not one of them. So I preferred the way it was. Well, there you have it. For better or worse, my top 5 things that I liked better back then. Peace and joy. Till next time.